What's going on, people? So listen, let's talk about how to play the corporate game in Canada, the business funding corporate game. Now, I'm talking about how to incorporate your brand new corporation, right? Your brand new corporation and get up to $50, $100,000 in unsecured business funding. This right here is $100,000 in unsecured business funding. It's a line of credit for a brand new corporation. When I registered this corporation, the corporation had no income, no sales, no business tax, but I was still able to get up to $100,000 in unsecured business funding. This is what I'm talking about the corporate game, how to play this business funding corporate game properly. But it's all about paperwork and how you structure yourself. Now, let me show you something quickly, right? So this here is from the government of Canada. So as of now, right, the government of Canada put out a new release or a new requirement for corporations. So which means if you're incorporating, so as of January 22nd, 2004, you need to file information on individual with significant control over your business. So what does that mean? So that means the government of Canada, now they are, they're setting new requirements for new corporations. So I just recently helped somebody do their annual filing, right, for their corporation, and they have to do this. So now, if you don't do this, what's going to happen is the government of Canada, the Corporation Canada might dissolve your corporation because you're not in compliant, right? Because you're not, you're not following the rules. So, and this is what's going on. So you need to understand how to play this corporate game properly so you can get massive business funding. Now, I'm also going to talk about how to run multiple businesses under one corporation and get funding for each one of these corporations, because a lot of you don't understand this concept, right? That you can run multiple businesses in one corporation, right? Some of you don't understand the concept of setting up trade names or DBA, doing business as. So this is everything that I'm going to be talking about, or that I'm talking about in the Funding Academy. So listen, I'm going to leave the link below to the Funding Academy. Right now, listen, the price is going to go up in April, because this is the type of information that I want to be telling you. How to incorporate, how to structure your business properly so you can get funding, right? Because you can run multiple businesses under one corporation and then get funding for each one of these corporations. Or you can have multiple businesses and have trade name for each one of these corporations. So it all depends. So this is the type of information you need. You need to take advantage of your corporation. Some of you have a corporation, but you're not taking advantage of it, right? You have a corporation just sitting at home or sitting online, and you don't know how to use it. Because listen, did you know that you can get funding for a corporation, even if you have bad credit, but you can still get funding on the trade side, right? It's called supplier credit. It's called vendor credit. It's called retail credit, right? It's called vendor credit. So you can still get funding for a corporation, even if you have bad credit, right? But you want to fix your credit. You want to position your credit so you can get funding with the big banks and the credit unions. Because listen, it's all about understanding how to play this corporate game. So what I'm going to be doing is this. I'm actually going to be adding additional services, right? So because there's a lot of people, you want to start, but you don't know where to start, right? So I'm going to be adding additional services where I'm going to be offering the services where I'm actually going to be doing the corporation for you, right? So I'm going to be filing for the corporation for you, so that way you have your corporation already structured properly, because you have to be able to structure it properly, right? So you have to understand how to set up your registered office, right? You have to understand how to set up your articles of incorporation, which is very important, because a lot of you don't know how to set up your articles of incorporation, right? You have to know how to set up your classes of member, right? Are you going to be a distributing corporation where you're distributing distributing shares, or non-distributing? So this is it's a lot of information that you have to know. So that way, you see, that's why I always talk about you positioning your personal credit, structuring your business properly, and then knowing which banks and credit unions to go with. Because listen, the corporate game is the banks and the credit unions will give you funding for a brand new corporation that has no sales, that has no business tax return, that has no business plan. They will give you up to $100,000 in unsecured business funding. This is $100,000 in unsecured business funding, business line of credit that I have access to anytime. I got this business line of credit with a brand new corporation that I registered, and the corporation at that time had no sales, had no customers, had no website address, had no head office. but it was structured properly. So my articles of incorporation was structured properly. My, classes of members, so everything was structured properly because I understand how to play this corporate game. So this is what I'm going to be doing in the Funding Academy. So that's why, as I said, right now, listen, the price is going to go up in this month, right? It's going to go up in April. So get into the Funding Academy. It's a 1-year membership. This is where you get to interact with me. I give you this information now. I recently posted on the Funding Academy, I posted a post talking about the high-risk industries and activities that you need to stay away from when you're applying for business funding. Because if you are in any of those high-risk industries or activities, you are going to get denied for funding. I posted it in the Funding Academy because I got that information directly from the banks, right? So this is coming from the banks. They're telling you that, hey, these are the high-risk industries and activities that you need to stay away from. If you are in any of these activities, it's an automatic denial, regardless of whether you want to do the automatic application or the instant approval or the manual application where it goes to a credit expert, no, not a credit analyst. So listen, this is the new game. You have to know how to play the corporate game, how to play the corporation game, right? Because right now, as I say, Corporation Canada, they are starting to, restrict, or they're starting to set new requirements for corporations. So if you don't file your annual return, most likely your corporation is going to get dissolved, right? So that's what I've been saying. Listen, these are small things that you can do to make sure your corporation is compliant. Filing your annual your annual return, right, which is different from your tax return, right? You also want to file your tax return, right? Even if you're not even if your corporation hasn't generated any revenue, you need to file your tax return. You need to file your annual return. You need to make sure your corporation is in compliance. This is how you get these high limit business funding for a brand new corporation. Because remember, when you are going to the banks to get funding for a brand new corporation that has no customers, no sales, no business plan, no business tax return, right? The banks are making lending decisions based on the way your personal credit is positioned and how your business is structured, right? Because remember, when you have a corporation, right, the banks are, because people use corporation for different means, right? So the banks, they want to make sure that, hey, is this person corporation, is it in compliance, right? Have they filed their annual return? Is there, do they have their articles of incorporation set up properly, right? Do they have their registered office, their initial registered office? They're a distributing corporation, distributing or non-distributing. So these are some of the some of the information you need to know. But once you understand it, once you know how to play the corporate game properly, this is where you can access these revolving business credit lines, business lines of credit, business credit card, business credit line, up to $100,000 for a brand new corporation, people, right? And you can apply this strategy to different financial institutions. You can go to Bank One, Bank Two. I have funding with most of these financial institutions. The banks that I don't have funding with is because their credit or their funding or their credit cards or their lines of credit reports on the personal side, right? So I don't have funding with those specific banks, right? But all the banks that don't report to the credit report, I have funding with them because it's that easy to get once you know how to structure your business, once you know how to position your personal credit and which banks to go with. Right? So I have funding with all these, and I got this funding with the brand new corporation that wasn't generating any revenue. So listen, this is what I want to teach you. This is what I want to show you, how to take advantage of your corporation, because a lot of you're incorporated, but you don't know how to maximize on it, because you can get funding from the banks, from the credit union. You can also get what's known as supplier credit, vendor credit, Net 30 account. That you can set up Net 30 accounts with different suppliers, different vendors. So now imagine you have funding, you have credit lines, business credit card, business lines of credit with the banks and credit union, and then you also have Net 30 account, supplier credit, vendor credit with the different types of vendor. Now you have all these resources for a corporation, which is just a piece of paper, right? That's it. It's just a piece of paper. And this corporation that you have, you don't have any customers yet. You're not generating any revenue yet. You don't have any You don't even have a domain name, but yet you're able to accumulate all these resources just because you got the right information, the right strategy. So this is what I'm here to show you: how to play the corporate game, how to play the funding game, how to play the game of accessing capital with the new corporation that's not generating any revenue yet, that has no business tax return, right? Because remember, there's a window of opportunity. There's a time frame that you have to try to maximize on the funding, because once you miss that, then that's it. So listen, you have a corporation at home, but you're not taking advantage of it. You can use this to get grants with the federal government, right? But you have to know how to structure, how to structure your corporation properly. So this is what I'm going to be doing, right? I'm going to be adding some services now where I'm going to set up your corporation for you, right? To make sure that your articles of incorporations are done properly. Your initial registry or your initial registration and directors form is also done properly, and then I'm also going to have another service where I set it up for you and I do like a 30 minutes or 45-minute session to show you now how to position your personal credit and how to get business funding, right? If you are in the Funding Academy, you can ask me these questions, and I'm also going to start putting some training videos on it as well. And the price is going up because I'm giving you some real life information that you can apply in real time by understanding the corporate game. Listen, there's a reason why the Corporation Canada is telling you that as of January 2022, January 22nd, 2024, these are the new obligations. Why? Because they've understood that, listen, there's a lot of people that are using corporations to access capital, access credit, access resources, access grants, right? So now Corporation Canada is telling you that, hey, listen, they're going to start dissolving some corporations that are not compliant, that are not filing their annual return, that are not, that are not taking the time to do these steps. Because there's people who, they get the funding or they get some resources and they don't keep their corporation compliant, right? So now Corporation Canada is saying that, hey, the government of Canada is actually, right? Because Corporation Canada is the government of Canada, right? So now they're saying that, hey, listen, this is the new obligation for a new corporation, right? And they're telling you that, hey, listen, if you don't do this, right, when you register, for a corporation, you have 15 days to do it, and so on. So if you don't do this, and there's certain penalties that you might face if you don't do it. What happens if it doesn't file, So, right, like you don't get your certificate of compliance, your corporation will be dissolved and so on. So even Corporation Canada is telling you that, hey, listen, right, this is, now you got to abide by the new rules, by new obligation. Why? Because you can take advantage of your corporation. All right, you can take advantage of the benefit of having a corporation once you understand it, from grants to accessing funding from the banks, or accessing net 30 accounts, vendor credit. Vendor credit. Listen, you can get supplier credit with a corporation that, even if you have bad credit, because remember, to get funding with the big banks, your credit on the personal side has to be positioned properly with your corporation structured properly as well. But there's also what we call net 30 accounts, right? Supplier credit, retail credit, vendor credit, right? You can get these funding or credit lines with these vendors and suppliers, and they don't focus on the personal credit. They focus more on the length, how long you've had your corporation, right? How long you've had your corporation, or how long you've been operating your corporation. So you can, listen, the resources is there. You just don't have the strategy and information on how to execute. So that's what the Funding Academy is about, right? As I said, I'm going to leave the link below, people. April, the price is going up. I'm going to be adding new pricing. I'm going to be adding new services as well to help you set up your corporation. If you're in the Funding Academy, right, you're going to get a discount. If you want me to set up your corporation, right, it's going to be an additional service, right? So those of you that are inside the Funding Academy, Once I add this service, then you're going to get a discount because you're already in. For those of you that are not, you're going to be paying the full price so that I can set up your corporation for you, make sure that your articles of incorporations are set up properly. Because what happens is this: once, if you're not compliant, if you don't file these new obligations that the Corporation Canada is telling you to do, what's going to happen is this: they're going to dissolve your corporation, and then the banks, once they find out that Corporation Canada has dissolved your corporation, guess what? They're going to cancel your credit lines. They're going to cancel your credit cards, your funding that you have. Why? Because your corporation is not in compliance. One of the conditions when you're getting funding is that you have to keep your corporation compliant, meaning you have to file your annual return with Corporation Canada. You have to make sure your addresses are up to date. So that's one of the requirements, because every year, the banks, they will look to see, is your corporation still active? Is your corporation still in compliance? So listen, this is the new corporate game that I'm going to be giving you: corporate information, corporate strategy on how to play the corporate game, the corporation game, which is just the legal paperwork, right? How to use that with your credit, leveraging your credit, and also with net 30 accounts, net 60s, supplier credit, vendor credit. I have all that information in the Funding Academy, right? From net 30s account, supplier, vendor credit, and all that. That's all in the Funding Academy, people. The resources is there. You can get a lot of resources with a corporation, right? Personal credit, corporation, and the right strategy with the right coach, with the right person. That's what I'm here to show you what you need to do to maximize on the funding with the new corporation. So listen, I'm out of here. I'm going to leave the link below to the Funding Academy. The price is going up this month. So get in so you can lock in for the next 12 months, because it's a 1-year membership, so you can get this information and get your massive business funding for a brand new corporation. So listen, I'm out of here. I'm going to see you all in the next video. I am out.